YouTubers, welcome to another episode of BYTTT. Before you take the trade, new format, new setup, new everything. The whole entire time, I kind of changed things a little bit. I want to say a quick shout out and thank you to quite a few individuals that went ahead and subscribed. I want to say thank you to, let's see, we got a few new people. When it's all said and done, we got Nora, Dimitri, Jack, Defense, Lucas, all y'all make this nice and easy. So if you haven't liked and subscribed on this video, share to your friends and family. Take the moment right now and do so. Also, I know some people ask, where can I send you a tip? Thank you for everything. So I put down below the Cash App, Venmo. You can follow me on IG. It's right there as well. In the description, you can also go directly through Streamlabs, which is what I prefer. I'm trying to build that thing up. As I start to build out my merch and everything, I'm starting to kind of knock it out. Also, if you don't know, my new program, Get Rich and Fit Trying, is starting today. We have a few more spots available for that. So please DM me on IG for details so that way you can participate on Get Rich and Fit Trying. We're going to go ahead and change our whole entire lives coming in here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and knock it out. We got a lot of stuff that we got to cover. First part is we want to go ahead and crack into the news a bit. Let's see, we got ourselves. Today's Monday. I'm kind of sped through. We got a few bill auctions, nothing real spectacular in itself. It looks like 3-month and 6-month bill auction is what's in place. Don't sweat that. That doesn't really do too much to the needle in the market. The one that we got to worry about is on Tuesday. You're going to get Canadian inflammation, not inflammation. Inflation. It's early in the morning. Inflation data. We got CPI coming in. Inflation data. New York New York Empire State Manufacturing Index. All of these things has a major role inside of our economy. So that's probably going to go ahead and determine how we're going to raise interest rates. So go ahead, get yourself settled. We're going to go ahead and get into these charts and really understand what is it that we're going to be looking for. So the first thing I always do, if you haven't been on this before, is I always check out the NQ. And the NQ is one of my favorite because it's just the way I operate, how I trade and everything else. Then I got a few individuals that also trade just like me and they use the NQ all the same. So I would say this is probably one of my favorite out of all tickers when it's all said and done as far as playing futures. I also play QQQ, so you're going to see me always refer back over to NQ because this kind of dictates what's going on in the market. You know, tech does lead the way. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. So first thing I want to kind of break down is the fact that we have been on this uptrend and they are holding this firm. I think we are building a very, very solid order block that is going to dictate how we're going to operate in the near future. So look for this trend to continue. I like to draw my trend lines with multiple deviations. What does that mean? I kind of have it where I'm making every higher low my new pivot. This is the last pivot before we made the all-time high. So right now we're breaking under it. We had a little bit of a bounce for a little bit, but we're breaking under it. So this is going to tell us a lot for the CPI data. I think if you're in a certain position, you might want to just hold on to it until that CPI data comes out tomorrow versus panicking and trying to get out of your trades. So look for that. All right, let's keep this going. Got a lot to cover. We got oil. Oil is doing its best impression of recovery. This will be a very interesting W if they can break back above $78. And if that's the case, we're probably going to be facing 78, 80, and $90. The one that's probably going to be the bigger concern is not even this pivot anymore. Actually, that could be the concern. That can be because this is actually a lower low. Let me grab that line off that pivot because I think I have it set. Yep, I have it set here. So let's put that there. All right, so our biggest concern is probably going to be around this level at $81, because if this $81 level actually gives up its lunch, this thing probably going to rocket to some of these levels, maybe even here, before it starts to slow down. So we're probably going to be getting into those $100 barrels again. And if you don't know how that feels, just remember how 2020 gas prices recovery was. It's kind of like that. All right, let's keep this going. We got gold. Gold is making a massive move to that upside. Like I said, I love my trend lines and I love my deviations. And you can kind of see we are trying to make new highs on gold. Look out for 34.75. I think this is what they're looking for, because that is part of our micro trend that they kind of disrespected. We're kind of back into an uptrend ever since here. But again, we made a deviation down to here. So look for possibly even here. So we got this point and we have this point here. So these 2 points, 34.13, 34.76, those are the ones I'm going to be concerned about, but I won't be surprised we get to that 3,500. Maybe, and I was telling a good friend of mine in the community, 37.55 is probably what they're aiming for, so keep that in mind. I don't trade silver, I just chart silver, and you can see the reason silver is making its consistent highs right now is because it's one of the laggard as far as all of it, like platinum and copper and all of those. But everybody always runs to gold for their hedge. But I love charting it because when this runs, it usually means the rest of the commodities run. And yeah, I chart copper. Copper is pretty cool too. All right, this is the British pound. This thing is falling down, and you don't want this. I was gonna say such a terrible pun, but anyways, we'll leave that alone because I am not gonna talk about London. This bridge, but yeah, you can kind of see this thing is coming down, and it's about to hit the 50-day moving average. If this can finish as a doji, we might get ourselves a solid morning star on top of support, because last time we was in the 50 moving average, this would lead us all the way up to here. So keep an eye on that. This is Bitcoin. I am pivoting. I know. I barely talk about Bitcoin, and it's one of those things, but I have my sour taste. I have a small position in it, but it left a sour taste as far as Bitcoin, especially the massive drop off in the middle of not this one, that was 24, around 23, 24, I think it was. Yeah, around this time was a massive drop off, and it cost me quite dearly. So I kind of stayed away from Bitcoin for a bit, but you could kind of see this is a nice little solid recovery as people are starting to panic to come in. I think we had 4 more stages at this point, but again, all the halvings has been in place. I think they got one more. I gotta go look. I haven't researched Bitcoin in quite a bit. Go ahead and put in a comment if is the halvings over, and I'll do my research as well and come back to tomorrow and kind of explain that. But we're starting to run at its cap supply for Bitcoin. So they're making each coin very extremely valuable. So just keep an eye on Bitcoin, because this is going to probably move tech too, because companies like Coinbase are in place, and I won't be surprised that Coinbase is going to lead the QQQs and end up in the S&P 500. All right, we got the Russell here. As this is just drifting up, it makes me a little concerned. But in a way, I'm happy it's drifting up, because this tells me that they don't want to invest into some of the domestic items. So that means we might be coming down on the Russell. And by coming down on the Russell, it should allow for us to be able to position ourselves properly and get ourselves into some of the larger caps in the S&P 500 and the Qs. Nice little bearish divergence is forming on the oscillator here on the stochastic, the histogram on the MACD. It can come through this range, but yeah, you want to just be smart with your position. And then last one is our, that's not you. Gotta go fix this chart back. Is the infamous dollar. This is what it looks like. It's just slowly drifting up. I think we're bear flagging a little bit, so I want to see what they do with this micro trend right here. And I'm going to move this trend line here, because that made lower lows, to here, and this is our crossroads that we're on right now. So a lot of questions going to be made here. look out for this area. If that's the case, then the market is going to drop something very heavy. That means the dollar should be getting back to its 100 level. If not, I am anticipating like 95. That's why I got that little market there. All right. So in this show, normally I go ahead and go through all the tickers, but that's going to be a little bit of a change and deviation from that, because what I'm going to do, oh, wrong button, not you. What I'm going to do is basically go over some of the more common topics and kind of break down my own thesis to it while pulling up the chart at the same time, so that way you can get a better understanding of what's going on. Also, we'll be covering over on earnings as well, just to kind of see what's going on, especially in the earnings cycle. A lot of tickers are going to move during that as people reposition, and then we'll probably recap what we did in the previous week and everything else. So that's going to be our new format for before you take the trade. And of course, I will run through my watch list if there is any time left. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get back over to the news. It's very interesting what's happening here with Tesla. Like the end of the day with Tesla, it's one of those that, yeah, I think he probably dropped the ball by going and joining his bestie Donald Trump in that, what was it, Department of Government Efficiency. So there's a nice little article. If you do not have CNBC Pro, I do suggest it. They kind of break down quite a few things here. But what they have here that was published was JP Morgan's top short ideas for the second half, including Tesla. There's a couple things that they're looking for. Moderna is another one. And we're probably going to go ahead and take a peek at all of those. Tesla is already showing signs of weakness, right? And one thing I will say is, which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because I know years ago when you attempted to short Tesla, a lot of Tesla supporters just came in pouring massively and pushed it right back up, which kind of made banks and everything a little apprehensive on shorting Tesla. I don't think that momentum is there anymore, but I don't think the supporters, not all of them, has disappeared. So I wouldn't take this article if you don't know. Generally speaking, like, people don't do this, but I follow that rule. I think it's Warren Buffett that coined it. At the end of the day, when everybody's happy, be fearful. When everybody's fearful, be happy, because then you can buy and sell. I'm probably paraphrasing the crap out of it into junk, but generally speaking, right now, if I'm seeing this rumor, it kind of comes in line with that. This rumor is now turned into news, and they're posting this. I think the short ideas for JP Morgan's already in place. I think that a lot of that short idea is this movement. I think if anything happens, this catalyst can go ahead and reverse. So the reason why I'm saying that is because we had a nice little solid downtrend. This is coming from December 2024. And if we look here, we got a nice little micro uptrend right here. And then we got another uptrend that is leading up into about here. So we had a nice little solid bump and run. If you don't know what a bump and run is, you have not been on my show before, but we had a nice little move to the downside over here where they bumped it up and they're running to this trend line. They're trying to get there. They can't, because the support roughly around this $300 level has been deemed formidable, and they can't really push it down to those levels. So I got a nice little solid order block somewhere around here. And as long as we stay on top of here, I think it's a good buy for Tesla when it's all said and done. But again, make sure you are doing your due diligence, because I am not a financial advisor or fiduciary. I'm just a guy that loves the charts, and their earnings is going to be coming up very soon. So this is going to be very cool to kind of see. If they miss earnings, maybe, JP Morgan is going to get a nice little pretty penny. If they are not, then they gotta go ahead and cover their position. So we're gonna have to see what happens there. All right, let's go ahead and keep this going. Oh, and don't forget about Moderna, Shake Shack, and a couple other things that they have listed in these stickers. Check them out. Another one that we're gonna be looking at, it is Lordy, I gotta click, then click. There we go. Got it in the right spot now. The European market shrugged off tariffs threats as investors await for a U.S. deal. Now, this is the one that's probably messing with companies like the British pound, not companies, but the currency like the British pound, because you can see with the British pound, this thing has been dropping. Now, shrugging off, a very interesting turn of phrase in that, right? It's almost like, oh yeah, since U.S. wants to do something stupid, we're perfectly fine. And then they kind of shrugged off what we're doing. I don't think it's that serious, but this kind of coincides and kind of confirms a little bit of could this day finish in a doji, then we get a morning star, and then go for higher highs. You want to see British pound, European markets, their currency kind of rise in that regard. But if they rise, then you're going to get like the euro that's going to drop, and that can put pressure on the British pound to also drop, which then strengthens the dollar. So it's going to be very interesting on how this all plans out. Hey, Mr. Donald Trump, or I should say President Donald Trump, please end these tariff talks and find a deal so we can finally understand what is happening over there. All right, the last article I'm going to bring up is oil. All right, I already covered this a little bit, and you can kind of see what I was talking about, right? Oil had a very, very massive move, right? So we're talking about solid move, war from one of our biggest suppliers in Iran. All these factors plays a part. So to coincide with everything we just discussed, you can kind of see we had divergences that was showing up. It was fighting. Now they're trying to drift right back into here. I do think at $72, it's going to end up rejecting and then continue to the downside. But again, that's only if it respects that. If it doesn't, this thing can fly right through. You got the crossover in the MACD, and it just continues up to that upper register and then test that $80 that I was discussing. All right, so let's go ahead and keep this going. We got a couple of things. So going over, we got earnings that's coming up. So the first one I kind of want to talk about is Fastenal. They had their earnings this morning. I want to say it was at 8 o'clock. Let's see what this looks like. Nice little gap up here. They returned an extra 2% to their shareholders, which is solid. And then they got found an extra $5 million. That's another good thing that you want to see out of your companies, especially when you're investing. But what does that all mean? Does this mean that the earnings is just people getting out of their position, or did it really want to move up? So we're going to go ahead and squeeze this chart over. Very solid company. It just keeps riding this 200 on the weekly. So let's go ahead and use that. This is our pandemic low right here. And this is its pivot right about here. All right, very solid move. Then we started making higher highs. This is from here up into this one here. All right, let's zoom in for those that's in mobile. All right, what else we got here? All right, so we got this one here. Really to here because they kind of deviated and broke through here, so we're going to do that. And it looks like it's just compressed pricing. I would say if this break of structure right here fails, you could have yourself a little bit of a problem continuing to the upside. But assuming that we're putting in what could be deemed as an order block, probably about right here to here, this could be what you want to see. So as long as we don't close under 41.77, maybe you could get yourself some continuation. Let's look left. Is there anything, or is this all-time high? I think this might be all-time highs. All right, so this is all-time highs. I got a nice little way of doing things here. Let's take it off this trend line here. Boom, boom. And this is our peak here as they did a pullback there. And let's go with profit taking. So probably about $47, $48, somewhere around there, would be probably where it starts to exhaust itself. The stochastic is crossed up. The MACD looks good here. If we go back over to the daily, it's very similar. If we come down to maybe like a 4 hours, probably needs a little bit of relaxation. But with this gap up, it's going to cross right back up. So then you got to take some higher time frames in that. And that monthly has just been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight months of just very solid push and movement. And maybe they're going to get that 7th. If they get a nice little close above 48, you might see some continuous high. Whoa, I forgot what Fastenal does. Let's take a peek. I got a little extra time here. Fastener engaged in the distribution of fasteners and tools. Okay, well, it always need tools. It also operate hardware stores. The company was founded by a few people. I'm not going to butcher their name. In Winona, Minnesota, in 1967. All right, I guess solid company. Do they pay dividends? They do pay dividends at this price. This could be people getting into their dividend positions and plays. That's probably what we're getting here, because it looks a little solid. All right, let's keep this going. So we do have earnings tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take a peek at who's going to be tomorrow. We have JPM. There's quite a few, but I'm just keying off on the ones that I'm concerned about and I'm probably going to be watching. We got JPM. JPM looks really, really interesting as it kind of continues up. It had a massive move here. I tried shorting it a while back, and that was part of this drop. I got out the way on time. I should have reversed instead, but hey, cry over spilled ticks. All right, so we got a little bit of a cross here for the stochastic as their earnings is going to be coming in tomorrow. So I would love to see what the price action here happens. I want to say if they hold this level at 277, there's a possibility we could get a nice little bounce to continue, because I think their earnings is going to be solid. I think they found extra money, especially with a lot of investors getting into the Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is running. So I would love to see what type of results are there. I might listen to this phone call. I gotta get back to my phone call listening, and let's see. If you haven't been on the show, I gave out a warnings for C. This is a company that is starting to get their act right. They got $20 billion moving around in revenues, and they coming off of 21. Yes, I know there's a little bit of a drop off coming from here to here, but again, I think they're really, really sound at this point. Whoever is in charge now is doing their job, and that's all you want to ask for. But if it does, and this is the one that's going to make me ask some questions. Maybe they're going to go ahead and pull it back just so that way we can make it make sense. But if we go right here, you'll see that we have a $90 mark that was back in the housing bubble. Okay, the housing bubble. If you don't know what happened during there was a whole bunch of mortgage-backed securities that went awry. Banks were greedy, crashed the economy, bailouts, and all of that. That's for my younger 20-something-year-olds. Okay, so when your mom and dad was arguing and everything about money, it was because of bank failure. But ever since then, they've divested. They used to have a behemoth of a company because they had all types of stuff all the way down to insurances, and that would be why they were in the $500 level. But now that they are here, I think they are visiting to get back up into those upper registers. So I'm very curious if that's the case. A nice close above the $90 level would then tell me this is probably going to be a long-term investment. All right, let's go ahead and take a peek on earnings cycle. I got quite a few, but let's just talk about this one. A couple of things that I'm still staring at Netflix. I like what's going on with Netflix, but of course they're pulling it back. It got to 1,300, almost 1,350. And now we're getting a little bit of a retracement. I think this is just the exhaustion of a trend. Investors are not going to come in and buy at these exorbitant prices. I think it will hold that 1,000 level when it's all said and done. Hence why I mark these fair value gaps on the monthly. If we go over to the daily, you can kind of see how the trend is running. So if you're going to go ahead and trade this, I would say just mark off your trends. You got two here, which is this one here and this one here. And as long as they respect this, you probably can get into like the 1150. But again, this is a freight train that is coming to a stop. We don't know if it's a stop to pick up some more people, or they're going to go ahead and run over a whole bunch of people as they just went ahead and slowed down and not really come to a complete stop. Just keep that in mind. Do not do anything crazy. Make sure you manage your leverage properly, and you should be fine. Their earnings is going to be on July 17th. So we'll be revisiting this again. Now, Meta. Meta is not making me relatively happy right now. If you don't know, I do have a tiny position in this, but I am very curious if it can hold this $700 level. They do have earnings that's going to be coming out there at the end of the month, so I think this is a nice little reprieve before that rally actually happens. We had a nice little kick up to the gap right here, so I'm trying to see, are they going to come back to kind of test this? That's a very strong possibility, and if they do we get a solid bounce right off this level? I would love to see if they do. If that doesn't happen, they're probably going to go ahead and test into that 678, which is going to really affect some of my positions. But okay, it's fine because the market's going to do what it wants to do. All right, anyways, RCL. This one is just ripping and roaring. Very good company. If you do love cruise lines, I would say wait for this to kind of calm down. It's usually around the winter. Get into the position. RCL is the stronger company. What I mean by that is if you always look around December, and December the price was around the 250, and you did that for the past, let's just say 6 years. Let's just keep on. Actually, let me go to a monthly. Let's do weekly. I want some granular details. So we got ourselves right here December, 250. Right here in December of 2024, 2023, it was 125. And then December of 2022 going into 2022 going into 2023, right? This one was around the ballpark of $61. And then you got the pandemic recovery, so this one's going to be a little tricky. But if you did dollar cost averaging, this was 84. And then you got this one right here. It was 2020 as we recovered was like $83, and so on and so on. And it was 135, and now it's a behemoth with everything that it is standing on now. Let's do one more. That's that. So I would say just keep in mind a cruise line at 127. So a lot of investors probably stepped in the gap when it fell down, and now they are sitting lovely. I do think there's going to be some profit taking that's going to happen eventually, and they're probably going to do like a sector rotation. But $4 billion with $4 of EPS to shareholders, terrible dividends. It's probably the reason why they're going to shave. But yeah, this is a very solid move. All right, what else I got for y'all? Let's go with IBM. If you don't know who IBM is, this is the company that actually was, and I've said this before, pioneered everything that had to do with AI, and they're getting tired. Nice little evening star at the top with a curl down. I'm looking to take IBM to the downside a little bit further. I won't be surprised if it gets back to like the 237, but I'm really aiming for like the 260s and 250s, somewhere around there. So just keep that in mind. And 250 puts on IBM. Not saying that's what you want to do, but it's going to be, I don't know, it's giving. No, I'm just playing. It is July 23rd, so we're going to be talking about this throughout this earnings cycle. So we're going to see how that earnings actually pans out. They do not pay relatively great dividends for their share, but they do pay out dividends. So I don't know. Did they take any profits out? Is it just this week, or is this one? Maybe they get a full reversal. Gonna be fun. Gonna be fun. All right, let's keep this going. I am running a little over. All right, so we got Apple. Now, if you're not in the community, I kind of broke down Apple and what it could do. I need that 213 level to hold. That's all it needs. If it can hold, then it recovers. I've seen some articles. It seems like the whole entire market does not trust Tim Cook. So this can be another catalyst that makes this thing kind of come down even further. So just bear with your position. If you can catch at good prices, then get in. But I will not be surprised if that 169 gets revisited again. And this is saying a lot for a company that was on top of Mount Olympus as far as tech. But there is a lot of problems that's happening over there. First thing is Apple Intelligence. You notice that nobody really talks about it, right? Anyways, we'll keep that on. 3M. That baby there. Now, I didn't take a longer term position, which is probably why I kind of regret it. I probably should have, like, right when we got to like that 130, 140, maybe got some 2027s, 2026s into that 200 level. I did not do that, but this is a nice little solid move. We get into that 150 level. I think this thing can continue, but they do have earnings that's going to be coming on Friday, and we're going to see what happens with that as we go ahead and conquer there. So before I go ahead and leave y'all, I would love to say thank you, thank you, thank you for participating in BYTTT, because it's without any supporters, it won't help that little algorithm to go. I have crossed over 250 plus in subscribers. The goal is to get to 500 before this year is out, and I think I could do it before the quarter is out. But it's going to take individuals like y'all to do that. So go ahead and send it to your friends and family. If you find this information very valuable, go ahead and comment down below so that way we can get interactive and see what is happening in the market. Maybe you see something that I don't see, and I break down some tickers for you. Also, down in the description, I am doing 80. Is it 80? I think it's 50% off. I think it was $50 or $50 off of all my charts. If you have trouble charting and everything else, go ahead, place your order. I'll break it down to its common denominator. And if you don't make no money or you have any complaints, you'll get a full refund. All right. So go ahead, get yourself your charts, make your order, and I will see you there. Also, let's go ahead and get into my final segment, which is recapping what we did last week. First thing we did was SoFi. We kind of talked about this on where it can go from here. This is now above $20. I think this is a $25 stock. I've known that since when it was like at $8. I have a position in it, but I had to readjust my position quite a bit before. 2 days ago, TD Cohen has maintained that SoFi is a hold. So basically now they're starting to get into the watch and see stage. I think there's going to be a massive pullback, a nice healthy massive pullback, I should say. So let's just assume that this is the high. So we're talking about a pullback to maybe, I don't want to see it to 618, but let's just say $16, $18. But anything under $14 can be concerning, because this could be reversal, and this thing would start to look like inverse head and, regular head and shoulder, which is not a good sign for bullish momentum. Another one that I'm looking at and been talking about has been Alcoa, as we're getting into the materials space. If you don't know who Alcoa, this is an aluminum, and since people are getting into the materials like your silver, your coppers, and everything else, things like aluminum tends to move with them as well. So keep an eye on Alcoa. They've been lagging for a long period of time because the Build Back Better bill did not really go anywhere. But this is where it used to be, and this is where it is now. Can they recover up there? Maybe not, but I'll take a 30 to 50 bucks and still make some money. And then the last one I want to give y'all before we climb out of here is Snow. Snowflake is getting a little bit of a pullback. I think the solid move for this was supposed to be a while back, and I broke this down to the community. I was looking for this, then that, and I think if they did this already, we wouldn't be here. But now that they're doing this here, I think we're going to get somewhere back into this area here. So look for Snow to test that $200 level. They're already at 209, and when they get there with their earnings coming out in the middle of August, you're probably going to get a nice little recovery right back to the upside. If you like the cybersecurity space, I do reference a lot. Datadog is one. This is how their chart looks like. CrowdStrike is another good one. This is what their chart looks like. And one that moves with them well is Zscaler. I don't think CRM actually moves with them like that. But it is pulling back relatively similar in the past couple of days. So just keep in mind of those in your radar. And that is the space that you should be paying attention to. Other than that, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and to all my supporters. And as we go ahead and wrap this whole show, it's very encouraging to kind of see what's going on with some of the people that supports me, and I'm having a lot of fun doing this. And as we get rich and fit trying, that's the goal, that's the program. If you want to participate, I got about 10 more slots available. Click the link down below in the description, or go to durandisgroup.com to get more information. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and bid y'all fun for I'll get ready for my chart, and see y'all tomorrow as we go ahead and realize what's going on with the market. I gotta get back into my flow of things. I take a week off and I don't even know how to end properly. This is just terrible. Anyways, see y'all tomorrow. Have a great day.